There's a certain kind of man who, when he finally buys the car he's wanted for 20 years, doesn't post it on Instagram. He drives it home alone, parks it in the garage, and just looks at it for a while. That tells you almost everything you need to know. The Porsche 911 is not the most expensive car in the world. It is not the fastest. It does not have the most aggressive body kit or the most theatrical exhaust note. And yet, decade after decade, it sits at the center of a particular kind of obsession, the kind that doesn't fade, doesn't get replaced by the next thing, and doesn't require an audience. If you want to understand why, you have to stop looking at the car and start looking at the person who chooses it. Because the 911 doesn't appeal to everyone. It appeals to a very specific psychological profile. And once you understand that profile, you'll see that the choice of a 911 is rarely about transportation, rarely about pure performance, and almost never about showing off. It's about something much deeper and much more interesting than that. Let's start with the object itself, because context matters. The Porsche 911 was introduced in 1963. 60-plus years later, it is still in production, and it still looks like itself. The roofline, the silhouette, the round headlights, they are immediately recognizable. Every generation has been a refinement. The engine moved from carbureted to fuel-injected, from naturally aspirated to turbocharged, from analog to digital. But the architecture, that stubborn, counterintuitive rear engine layout that most engineers would have abandoned decades ago, remains. Porsche didn't change the formula, they mastered it. This is not a small thing psychologically. In a culture defined by disruption, by the new replacing the old, by planned obsolescence and quarterly pivots, the 911 represents something almost radical: continuity. The belief that a great idea, relentlessly refined, is more valuable than a new idea hastily executed. For a certain kind of person, that philosophy doesn't just appeal to their taste, it reflects their worldview. The psychologist Russell Belk, in his landmark work on what he called the extended self, proposed something that changed how we think about possessions. He argued that the things we own are not separate from who we are. They become part of our identity. We use objects to define ourselves, to express ourselves, and to communicate ourselves. To others, and more importantly, to ourselves. The self in this model extends outward into the material world. What you own is, in some meaningful sense, what you are. Apply this to the 911 owner and the theory sharpens immediately. This is not a man who bought a car. This is a man who selected an object to become part of his identity. And the object he chose tells us that he values precision over ostentation, heritage over novelty, earned expertise over purchased status. The 911 is not a trophy. It is a declaration of values. This also explains why owners don't just drive them, they study them. They know the difference between a 993 and the 996. They can tell you why the GT3 uses a naturally aspirated engine in an era of forced induction. They have opinions about the transition from hydraulic to electric power steering, and those opinions are informed. The car becomes an area of mastery, and mastery becomes part of the self. Now, consider the question of status signaling, because it's impossible to ignore, and it's where the 911 becomes genuinely fascinating. The economist Thorstein Veblen identified what he called conspicuous consumption, the practice of spending visibly and extravagantly to communicate wealth and social position. A Lamborghini Huracan is, in many ways, the purest expression of this idea. The scissor doors, the aggressive angles, the sound engineered to turn heads, these are signals designed to be received at maximum volume. Look at me. I have made it. I want you to know. The 911 operates on an entirely different frequency. In evolutionary biology and economics, costly signaling theory describes how certain signals are credible precisely because they are expensive to fake. But there's a subtler layer to this. The most sophisticated status signals are often illegible to those without the knowledge to decode them. A base model Carrera in Guards Red reads as aspirational to the general public, but a slate gray GT3 Touring, stripped of the wing, understated to the point of near anonymity, that communicates something to a very small audience. People who know, know. and the 911 owner, almost universally, prefers it this way. This is not modesty. This is a more refined form of status communication, one that targets a specific audience, usually peers, experts, and those with genuine domain knowledge. It says, I don't need your approval. I need the approval of people who understand what this actually is. That psychological distinction separates the 911 from virtually every other aspirational vehicle on the market. If you run the 911 owner psychology through the lens of the Big Five personality model, one of the most widely validated frameworks in personality research, a consistent pattern begins to emerge. Conscientiousness, in particular, tends to run high. This is the dimension associated with precision, preparation, long-term planning, and the deep need for competence. Conscientious individuals don't make impulsive decisions. They research, they evaluate. They take satisfaction not in acquisition, but in informed acquisition. The fact that many 911 owners wait years before buying, study configurations obsessively, and often delay gratification in favor of getting the exact right specification, that is textbook conscientiousness in action. Openness to experience also tends to be present, but in a specific form. Not the kind that chases novelty for its own sake, but the kind that finds depth more interesting than breadth. The 911 owner is often someone who would rather know one thing extraordinarily well than many things superficially. This orientation, sometimes called need for cognition, the intrinsic motivation to think deeply, shows up again and again in the way enthusiasts engage with engineering, with driving dynamics, with the history of motorsport. Achievement orientation is the third strand. These are men who, in most areas of life, define success by mastery rather than recognition. They want to be good at things, actually good, not good looking, not popular, competent. The 911 becomes a kind of proxy for this value system. It is a car that rewards skill. It is not forgiving in the way that front-engine, front-wheel drive cars are forgiving. It requires you to understand it, and the men who choose it, overwhelmingly, want to be the kind of person who understands it. There is a deeper psychological threat here, and it runs through the engineering itself. Precision engineering by its nature is a kind of controlled environment. Every tolerance is specified. Every component serves a function. Nothing is arbitrary. For certain personality types, particularly those with a high need for cognitive control, this is not just aesthetically pleasing, it is emotionally reassuring. The world, as most high-functioning men in professional or entrepreneurial life experience it, is chaotic, uncertain, full of variables that resist optimization. The 911 is the opposite of that. It is a mechanical system that behaves predictably within known parameters. Mastery is achievable, and achievable mastery, for a certain kind of mind, is profoundly satisfying in a way that is hard to articulate but impossible to deny. This is also why driver engagement matters so much to this community. Not horsepower as an abstract number, not a 0 to 60 time to quote at a dinner party. The actual, physical, sensory experience of being connected to a machine that responds to input with precision. The steering communicating information through your hands. The balance shifting under braking. The engine's response to throttle inputs measured in fractions of seconds. This is control made tangible. And for men who spend their professional lives managing uncertainty, ambiguity, and other people, that tangible control is, psychologically speaking, deeply nourishing. Then there is the question of legacy, which the 911 carries in a way almost no other object does. There are very few modern products in life that span generations with both cultural coherence and genuine relevance. The 911 is one of them. A father who bought a 964 in the early 90s could sit in his son's 992 today and feel meaningfully that the thread connects. The proportions, the feel of the wheel, the logic of the cockpit. This is not nostalgia. Nostalgia is a longing for something lost. This is continuity, something still present, still alive, still evolving. For men navigating questions of identity across time, who they were, who they are, who they want to become, this kind of object offers something rare, a stable reference point. Identity research consistently shows that humans need a coherent narrative of the self, a sense that who we are today connects meaningfully to who we were and who we intend to be. The 911, purchased at 40, often echoes a poster on a teenage bedroom wall. It closes a loop. It tells a story about a person to themselves. And that story, quietly, matters enormously. Now, the part that requires honesty. Beneath the achievement, beneath the mastery, beneath the deliberate restraint, there is something else. Something that doesn't diminish the 911 owner, but does make him more human. There is, in the psychology of earned, understated status, a fear. Not of failure exactly, of something more specific, of being ordinary, of working hard, of building something real, of developing genuine expertise and not being recognized for it. Not by the crowd necessarily, but by the people whose judgment matters. The genius of the 911 psychologically is that it resolves his tension elegantly. It is a signal that is simultaneously humble and significant. It says, I did not need to shout. I did not need to perform. I chose quality over theater. And if you understand what that means, then you understand me. If you don't, that's fine too. This is not arrogance. It is the quiet, deeply human need to be seen accurately by the right people for the right reasons. The Porsche 911 is 60 years of the same conviction, refined. The men who choose it, in the end, are not so different. They are men who have decided what they value, who have built something real, and want the objects around them to reflect that. Not loudly, not performatively, but precisely. They don't drive a 911 to be seen. They drive it to recognize themselves.